certain age will get this joke. I've waited all my life to have Pants People as a backing group. It's still got the price label on it, so I hope he's paid for it. Anyway, we gather here today with our country facing its biggest crisis in nearly 80 years. This week has exposed the myth that Britain is built on solid constitutional monarchy that is the envy of the world. Instead, we've come to realise that our democratic rights, so valuable to our way of life but so easily taken for granted, are protected only by convention, precedent and a willingness to respect tradition. This leaves it vulnerable to abuse by the right individual, or the wrong individual. This week, that individual came forward and trampled all over the so-called mother of all parliaments. Don't be fooled by those who attempt to dismiss this as a minor technicality, the loss of a mere few days of parliamentary time. This is a planned and premeditated attack by an unelected Prime Minister, abusing the historic rights of an unelected monarch to prevent democracy from taking place. And when I say democracy, I don't talk about preventing Brexit or disregarding the results of the EU referendum. I'm talking about the fundamental right of elected representatives to debate, negotiate and vote on an equal basis on a resolution to the crisis we face when it comes to our future relationship with the EU. Yes, there are those who want to stop a no-deal Brexit, but there is no guarantee they would have succeeded in their bid. They would have to stand before Parliament and convince a majority of their peers to back their cause. Likewise, the minority that want a hard Brexit would have had to do the same. That is how democracies operate. That is how freedom and our way of life is protected. None of these things are served by exploiting the office of the Prime Minister in order to run down the clock and to force the country into a disorderly no-deal Brexit, which was not on the ballot paper in 2016. One of the things Leave voters thought they were getting by leaving the EU was a return of parliamentary sovereignty. Today they wake up to the nightmare that instead they are simply handing over from one group of unelected officials to another in number 10. I don't know. Has his handle come off? But has he lost his bottle? I don't know what's going to happen next week, and I don't know what it will hold, but I do know it's not the end. Indeed, to invoke Churchill, who a lot of people have invoked in this debate, it may not even be the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning. A greater threat now faces us. Should Parliament succeed next week in legislating to stop no deal, then it's likely that the Prime Minister will call an election and seek to pit the people against Parliament for betraying the referendum results. We need to be ready for that and prepared to fight the lies, half-truths and spin and frying pans that will inevitably follow. We will have to do that against the backdrop of a weary public, many of whom will blindly support the Prime Minister if it means the whole Brexit debacle will be over. We want to convince them there is something more important that's worth fighting for. When we've won the fight, we must build a new consensus that will ensure this can never happen again. By drawing up a full written constitution that removes power from a tiny elite and places Parliament in full control of its own destiny and our democracy. Today marks 80 years since the start of the outbreak of the Second World War. Men and women all across Britain would join with their cousins across Europe in fighting to defeat those who sought to shut down debate, make laws on a whim, reduce the masses to puppets, and determine the destiny of nations on the basis of their own twisted ideology. They risked and gave their lives for the future generations would not have to suffer this, but would instead have the right to disagree with each other, and do so well. That all views would be taken into account, all peoples respected, and the destiny of a country determined on the basis of a shared consensus. We honour the values they fought for by standing here in defiance of this week's act of constitutional vandalism. This all started 3 years ago with the biggest democratic vote in the country's history. Only democracy can provide a way out of this crisis we face. Thank you.